Okay, so today we are continuing with chapter 2 of the Gospel and according to Spiritism. I believe Jean read the very first part, so we're going to just read it today again and talk a little bit about this short passage. As we spoke when we gave the introduction of this book, Kardec divided this book in four parts. And the very first part is what we call the foundation, the basis, the pillar for the whole book and for the whole teachings of Jesus Christ. That's what a good understanding of those first four chapters, right? I have not to come to destroy the laws. This one, my kingdom is not of this world. Chapter 3, there are many dwellings in my Father's house. And chapter 4, no one can see the kingdom of God unless he is born again. Those four things are at really a base of foundation for the doctrine and for the teachings of Jesus to make sense, making use of reason, unless we will choose to have this blind faith, which doesn't last long, because you are intelligent beings. We seek understanding, we seek reasoning, and without this understanding of these four pillars, the teachings of Jesus will fall apart. There will be things that will make absolutely no sense unless we first get these four chapters first. And I'm saying this because I think this chapter 2, not more or less than the others, but is extremely important for us to be really comfortable with this idea, the ideas that is brought in this chapter. Beyond understanding, be comfortable with this idea. Having this idea of my king is not of this world, a very commonplace, nothing of the divine, nothing of the extraordinary, but common things. This is what it is in a very natural way. If we can grasp that idea, it will help us not only to understand the whole teachings of Jesus, but will make our life here on earth a lot more bearable, a lot more easier, and even enjoyable for most of us, because it brings to us the certainty that there is something much greater, much important for us to conquer than this bad day at school or good day at school. But this passage on earth is nothing more than a day at school. To have that in mind, that eventually you're going to go back home after the day of school, if you see this in a very natural way, it brings to us, as we're going to see in what the Kardec called the point of view, it enlarges so much our point of view that you make our life here easier, a lot more bearable, and even we'll be able to enjoy being here. Okay? So, Sarada, can you read this first
Yes.
part to us?
Yes. My kingdom is not of this world. The future life, the kingship of Jesus, a point of view, instructions from the Spirit in earthly kingship. Number 1, then Pilate entered into the judgment hall again and called Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of Jews?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not here." Then Pilate said, "So you are king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am king. For this reason I was born, and for this reason I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of the truth listens to me." John.
Okay. spend a few minutes over here with this passage of John that Kardec and brought pieces of the whole dialogue that Jesus had with Pilate when Jesus was actually brought to the Praetorium and have and Pilate had to make a decision on what to do with Jesus, right? And Pilate seems to be quite confused, did not to do well with Jesus, try to put the responsibility in Herod because Jesus was a Galilean, but Herod said, no, I'm not taking this pineapple with my hands. So Pilate had to do it with Jesus and try to pass the responsibility to the Jews, to the high priest, who gave back to him. And we see in that dialogue that Pilate was really kind of not really sure what to do with Jesus, right? And he asked, are you a king? I said, well, you say I'm a king, but I'm not king of this world, which tells us there is another world, right? And it's interesting that he says that if he were a king, his workers, his people, would not allow him to be delivered to the Jews. But to me, is interesting that Jesus does not put himself amongst the Jews, although he was Jewish, you know, born in the Jewish community, but he separated himself that should not be delivered to the Jews. And then he says, but now my kingdom is not here. And then now, to me, he is important because it gives us the potential that later in the future it will be. I read this as, but now, for now, this is not my kingdom. But it has the potential of being the future. And Paulus continued with his confusion, so to say, with what to do with this guy. So you are a king. And that now is not a question anymore, it's a statement. You are a king. And Jesus answered, you say I'm a king, right? And it says over here, for this reason I was born, and for this reason I came into the world, to testify to the truth. And it's interesting they use the word testify, to give testament. So to mean someone who witnessed, someone who saw, someone who understood, and someone who can speak of it. Right? And then you're going to see what is the truth then, which Pilate's asked, and Jesus did not answer because Pilate was not ready for it. And Pilate's poor thing was so confused already with the answers of Jesus that I think Jesus gave him a break not to go into the truth that he would not be able to understand at all. Jesus just silent. And Pilate didn't even wait much time for the answer. He went back to the Jews and said, we choose who you want, and they chose Barabbas, as we know. And he says more, everyone who sides with the truth listens to me. It's not even everyone who understands the whole truth, anyone who have grasped the whole truth, but anyone who is willing to, who sides with the truth, will listen to him. And then if you go to the word truth over here, what is the truth? I'm going to go quickly on chapter 6. And give me a second. On item 5 is interesting. Do you see that there? So right, I can read.
Yes, I'll read it.
Okay.
Number 5, the advent of the Spirit of truth. I have come as I came on another occasion to those misguided sons and daughters of Israel to bring the truth and to dissipate the darkness. Listen to me, just as my words in the past did. So today Spiritism must remind the incredulous that above them reigns the immutable truth that is the existence of the good God. the great God who causes the plants to germinate and the waves to rise up. I reveal the divine teachings. As a reaper, I have gathered into sheaves the scattered goodness in the breasts of human beings and said, "Come unto me, all who are suffering."
Thank you. So what is this truth? And you can see over here the spirit of resistance. So the truth is basically God. But now the truth for God, the good God, the generous Father, the one who creates laws for our happiness, the one who is not up there like a judge and punish people, but the one who is there creating divine laws to teach us how to live in complete harmony and happiness. And of course, Spiritism comes to expand on these teachings, right? That's why I use here Spiritisms, right? Must remind the incredulous that above the reigns of immutable truth, there is the existence of the good God, the great God, who causes the plants to germinate and the waves to rise up. So just give an idea of when Jesus spoke the truth over there, what he is talking about. Now you can go back to that. Is there any questions, any comment?
Okay.
Okay, so you can go into the future life now.
Life. Yes. Number 2. With these words, Jesus clearly refers to a future life, which he presents in all circumstances as the goal to be reached by humanity and which should be our greatest preoccupation here on earth. All of his maxims refer to this great principle. Indeed, without a future life, there would be no reason to have the majority of these moral precepts. This is why those who do not believe in a future life cannot understand or think that the matter foolish, because they imagine that Jesus was only speaking of the present life. This dogma can be considered as the basis of Christ's teaching, the central pivot. Therefore, it has been placed as the first item in this work. It must be the point to be most closely looked at, as it is the only one that justifies the anomalies and irregularities of earthly life and shows itself to be in accordance with the justice of God.
Well said. If you take the teachings of Christ, and limits to one existence, one earthly existence, his whole doctrine falls apart. How to make sense of blessed and afflicted with one single existence? How blessed can it be come to this world and encounter nothing but suffering, nothing but torments? How can it make sense of a good, generous father when babies are born with already with diseases, with genetic defects, with heart problems? How can we make sense of a God who loves everyone equally when we see in this earthly existence so many discrepancy amongst us, some with so much and others with absolutely nothing, so many with good health and others sick for no fault of their own. It's we could even separate those who are sick for committing excesses or taking bad choices, but there are others there that are sick without no fault of their own. If you limit our existence, if you limit the existence of one and only word, if we leave aside the possibility of future life, the teachings of Jesus will not make any sense. And this is what Kardec to bring to us in this item 2. Any comments, any questions? All right. Number 3 then.
Okay. Number 3, the Jews had only very vague ideas regarding a future life. They believed in angels, whom they considered privileged beings of the creation. They did not know, however, that men and women could one day become angels and so participate in the same happiness. According to them, the observance of God's law would bring worldly recompense, the supremacy of their nation, and victory over their enemies. The public calamities and downfalls were a punishment for disobedience to these laws. Moses can say no more than to those who were mostly shepherds or ignorant people who needed to be touched before anything else by worldly things. Later, Jesus revealed that there exists another world where God's justice follows its course. He promises this world to all those who obey the commandments of God, and where those who are good find recompense. This is
Sorry.
This is his kingdom, where he will be found in all his glory, and to which he returned when he left earth. However, adapting his teachings to the conditions of humanity at that time, Jesus did not consider it convenient to give them all the truth. He saw that they would only be dazzled by it and unable to understand, so he limited himself in a matter of speaking to the presentation of a future life as a principle, as a natural law whose action no one could escape. Therefore, every Christian firmly believes in a future life. However, the idea that many people hold is still vague, incomplete, and because of this, quite false on various points. For the majority of people, it is nothing more than a belief, void of absolute certainty. So this is why there are doubts and even incredulity. Spiritism has come to complete this point, as well as many others touched on by the teachings of Christ. Now that human beings are sufficiently matured as to be able to learn the truth, with Spiritism, a future life is no longer an article of faith, a mere hypothesis. It becomes a material reality as facts demonstrate, because those who have described it to us have all been eyewitnesses. So not only is doubt no longer possible, but also anyone of whatever intelligence is able to get an idea of its many varied aspects, in the same way that we can imagine what a country we have never visited is likely by reading a detailed description of it. This description of the future life is circumstantiated to such an extent, and the conditions of existence for those who reside there, be they happy or unhappy, are so rational that we are bound to agree that it could not be otherwise. It patently represents the true justice of God.
Okay, thank you, Soraya.
Okay.
So the truth is, the belief of an existence of another life was already present among the Jews and amongst many other cultures throughout the globe, many other civilizations at the time of Jesus. The idea of the future life existed, but it was so far from what Jesus brings to us, the truth, that things didn't make sense at all. And they would believe in special beings, angels. They had been selected by God. They was privileged by God. And Jesus brings to us the idea now that we are the ones to, through our own work, elevate ourselves to the level of the angels. Meaning there is nothing of the privileged for the so-called angels. And of course, in Spiritism, we would use the word higher spirits, elevated spirits, evolved spirits, and other cultures would call it angels, right? But it's nothing more than once we learn all those things over here, apply those things over here, and make those things over here our way of life. Then you become angels, basically, higher spirits. Right? So it did exist, the idea of a future life, but there is no explanation for it. There is no way to grasp that concept. So we limited the God's laws to something very earthly, right? So it says here, according to them, and when Kardec puts over here, no ignorant shepherd doesn't think it's not putting anyone down. We understand very well that it is us, right? It's us. Some 2,000, oh, most some 4,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, right? This is not them, it's us. When you read the old Jews were here, we can take the word out and put us, ignorant shepherds, us who are not able to grasp more abstract concepts. And for that, we took all those laws as something very earthly, right? That the public calamities and downfalls and punishment for disobedience of these laws. That the rewards from doing things right would be things associated with earthly life, would be to have more cows, to have more wives, to have more children, and those things. That's meaning that you are being good to God. And also the other way around, if you are poor, if you end up with leprosy, if you are poor, that was a punishment from God as well. Therefore, you deserve your lesser beings because God is angry at you, because everything was very limited to the earthly existence, since you didn't have the ability to expand our horizons to see the idea of a good God that Jesus brings to us now, right? And the same thing, unfortunately, happened with Christianity when both of the church, the Catholic Church and the Protestants, did not open the horizons to see life be very far beyond of what is present to us in our earthly existence. Jesus could not say everything at a time. However, when adapted his teachings to the conditions of humanity at that time, Jesus did not consider it convenient to give them all the truth. It's impossible, right? It's impossible to teach calculus to someone who have not yet understood trigonometry. You need to go to that steps. You need to go step by step. So Jesus brought what we could take at that point. Unfortunately, some of the so-called Christians stopped it right there. They did not consider the possibility that we are in a path of progress, and what was taught for us at one point needs to be incremented, needs to be complemented, the same way that mathematics does not stop with trigonometry. This is just the beginning, basically, to understand things more complicated ahead, but you need to grasp that trigonometry before you jump into calculus. You need to get into calculus before you can really understand integrals and so forth and so on, and things never stop, right? Unfortunately, dogmas have been created, and since dogma by definition is a statement of a high authority that cannot be disputed, cannot be questioned, and people stop questioning, disputing those dogmas, and get stuck inside of those dogmas and did not leave them. And Spiritism has come to complete this point. Spiritism get out of the box, liberate us from the dogmas, for those who choose to be liberated, of course, and gives us the opportunity to question, the opportunity to challenge what Jesus is saying. My kingdom is not of this world. What are you talking about? How many words are there? Which words are you talking about? Can you clarify that to us? And when we start to question and you are able, for one thing, when you start to question, is a good indication that you are kind of ready for answers, right? And you start to question and seek and look for those answers, then likely you receive those answers. And the Spiritism come at that point, when there was enough intellectual development for us to be able to understand more complex, more abstract theories. And then Spiritism comes at this point and brings the evidence. Again, testify. The word that Jesus used, testify. Spiritism again testifies the truth, right? Bringing the testimonium of those living the different life, the other life, the spiritual life, with the descriptions, with testimonial of those who have been there, and bringing the proof for those who need the proof, by bringing the understanding for those who seek the understanding, and bring the witness of the truth of the words of Jesus, of the necessity of to practice the teachings of Jesus, how those who practice to the best of their abilities find themselves in the other kingdom, and how those who completely neglect and even oppose and behave in the way opposed to the teachings of Jesus find themselves in this other world. So this description of the future life is circumstantiated to such extent in the conditions of existence for those who resides there. They be happy or unhappy, are so rational that we are bound to agree that it could not be otherwise. It patently represents the true justice of God. So it took about 2,000 years after Jesus for Spiritism to come and to fully explain everything that Jesus was saying. The idea of the future life. Any comments? Questions? Okay.
Okay. The kingship of Jesus. Number 4. We can all recognize that the kingdom of Jesus is not of this world. But could he not also have a kingdom on earth? The title of king does not always imply temporary authority. We give this title by unanimous consent to anyone who rises to the highest level of whatever idea dominates the times and influences human progress. In this way, we frequently use the expression of king or prince for philosophers, artists, poets, and writers, etc. In many cases, this kind of royalty, coming from personal merit or having been consecrated by prosperity, reveals supremacy far greater than the circling a royal crown. The first is but a toy of the vicissitudes, whereas the second is imperishable. The generations that follow the first sometimes have cause to curse, whereas those who follow the second always bless themselves. The earthly one extinguishes with life, but the severity of morality continues and maintains its reign, ruling above all after death. From this aspect, then, Is not Jesus a mightier and more powerful king than all the servants of the earth? It was with good reason that he said to Pilate, I am a king, but my kingdom is not of this world.
The kingship of Jesus. We can agree that the kingship of Jesus is not of this world. So the question for Kardec now is that, but could it be? And again, when he answered Pilate, he said, now. Use the word now, giving for us the potential that eventually would become, right? What Kardec does here in this short passage is give us the idea of two ways of seeing kingship. There is a kingship of the monarchy that it's basically by genetics, right? You are born king or you are not born king, and regardless of how good, how bad, how nice, how not nice you are, you have that title. But there's also a kind of kingship that is meritorious, that is based on merit, and that is chosen not by the one who is labeled king himself, but for those who analyze, those who witness the work that someone is doing. So if you use the example, say, Pelé, king of soccer, he didn't put that crown on his own head. It was given to him through the work that he's done on the soccer field. And the same thing you say, the king of basketball, perhaps Michael Jordan, everyone around him recognized the work that he's done, the level of athleticism and techniques that he brought to the game at such a higher level that he received the title of king. Not that he placed that on his own, the crown on his own head. I mean, he did by merit, by work, by showing his incredible abilities. And you could bring that the king of some kind of art, the king of cinema, the directing movies or acting. That is a kind of kingship that is based on merit, on what you display, what you show to be. In this way, when we see Jesus as a king of earth, the king of moral values, the king of humility, the king of selfless service to the people, yes, we could. In that point, we could say and understand when Jesus would say, I am a king, but my king is not of this world. Because he's a king in a world where the truth prevails, and the individuals of that kingdom seeks to live in accordance to that truth. Not saying that they are all angels already. No, absolutely not. But having that as a goal, as an objective, and again, by angel, evolved spirits, okay? A more evolved spirit, doing the daily work of overcome ourselves, become a little bit better, following the teachings of Jesus. If you do that, then it's accepted the idea that individually I could say, Jesus is my king. But in that idea, in that concept, I could accept. And if I am able to do that, and eventually let's say that 6% of earthly population will say the same thing, then we would agree that majority would agree that the Jesus is a king, but not a king monarch, a king of humility, a king of leading us towards the truth, towards the angelical state that we all seek for ourselves. And by angelical state just means absolute peace with ourselves, absolute peace with our conscience, living in accordance with the divine laws created for our happiness. Then we could see the placement of the kingdom of Jesus here on earth amongst us. Comments, questions? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Continue the point of view.
You're mute, Soraya.
Huh?
Sorry. Thank you, John.
Oh,
A point of view. Number 5, the clear and precise idea that can be formed of a future life provides an unshakable faith in what is to come. This faith places enormous consequences upon the moralization of humans because it completely changes the point of view as to how life on earth is regarded. For those who place themselves by means of thought in the spiritual life, which is undefined, bodily life becomes a mere temporary stay in an ungrateful country. The vicissitudes and tribulations of this life become nothing more than incidents, which can be supported with patience, as they are known to be of a short duration and will be followed by a more admirable state. Death no longer has terror attached to it. It ceases to be a door opening onto nothingness and becomes a door that opens to liberation, through which the exile enters into a well-placed, blessed mansion, and there finds peace, knowing that the place where we find ourselves now is only temporary and not definite, makes us pay less attention to the preoccupations of life, resulting in less bitterness and a more peaceful state of mind. Simply by doubting the existence of a future life, people direct all their thoughts to earthly existence without any certainty of what is to come. They give everything to the present, which with the mistaken idea that there is nothing more precious than earthly things. They behave as a child who can see only its toys and is prepared to go to any length to obtain the only possessions they judge to be solid. The loss of even the least of these causes purgent hurt, be it a mistake, a deception, an unsatisfied ambition, an injustice to which the person has fallen victim, hurt, pride, or vanity, just to name a few. These are some of the torments that turn existence into internal agony. So in this matter, causing self-inflicted torture at every step, from the point of view of earthly life in whose center we place ourselves, everything around us begins to assume vast proportions. The harm that reaches us, as well as the good that touches others, takes on a great importance in our eyes. It is like the person who, when in the middle of a great city, sees everything on a large scale, but who, when looking down from a mountaintop, sees things in only minute form. This is what happens when we look at life from the point of view of a future existence. Humanity, just as the stars in space, loses itself in great immensity. We begin to see that great and small things are confounded, like ants on top of an anthill, that proletarians and potentates are of the same nature. We lament that so many short-lived creatures give themselves over to so much labor in order to conquer a place that will do so little to elevate them, and which they will occupy for so short a space of time. From this, it follows that the value given to earthly things is completely in reverse to that which comes from a firm belief in a future life.
thank you.
Welcome.
The point of view is interesting. Kardec which is over here. As a matter of fact, the point of view, how do you view life? To which point you look at our existence? And it's because of this, I'm going to say, misguided point of view that pilots could not understand Jesus. That's why the Jews could not understand Jesus. And that's why most of us did not then, and still now cannot understand Jesus. Because we have a very different point of view, the way that we guide our attention to, the way that, again, because of the dogmas, they act like, I can never know the name of the thing that you put around the horse eyes so they can only see one point of view and not extend the vision to see different things. We start seeing things only from the earthly point of view, and that becomes a problem to us. It's because of not being able to shake ourselves from those dogmas and really enlarge, augment our life beyond this earthly existence. Then life becomes a challenge for us, and the teachings of Jesus become basically impossible for us to understand. But if we are able to extend our point of view and see life as more than one simple earthly existence, for us to expand our life to a continuum of a one single life that goes from a physical passage to a completely spiritual passage to a back to a physical life as much and as many times as needed, then our point of view changes. And you understand that our true life is the spiritual life, the world of ideas, of, as Plato could say, right, is the true world, and this world is the shadow of this true world, of the true world. Then our point of view changes completely. For those who place themselves by means of thought in the spiritual life, which is undefined, body life becomes a mere temporary stay in an ungrateful country. So if you understand being here is being in a period of the shadow, while you go back to the light, then we give ourselves a tremendous, you see things with a tremendous different perspective. For one thing, death no longer has such a terrible thing. We do not fear as much as the ones who does not have that concept. The idea of nothingness is eliminated. The idea that all of the ones are lost forever is eliminated. The prospect, the hope, the consolation that we will be reunited with all of the ones augments the quality of this life. And this life is not as bad. That Jesus, that the God is really a good God, because He did not create us to come here, have these wonderful, beautiful relationships, and then blink, all gone, nothing anymore. But the concept of the spiritual life opens to us this horizon that it's nothing is lost. The relationships based on true love are just as eternal as we are, and you will continue with our loved ones. There's a tremendous amount of hope and something that even makes death something a lot more manageable for us to think about. Not only our death, but the thought of our loved ones as well. So we completely redefines for us the perspective of a happier life in the future, when, of course, we have the idea of a life that continues. that there is something more than that. But if you do not, as Kardec puts over here, if you do not open ourselves, get out of the box, challenge the dogmas, and be free thinker and really questions and seek for answers, we are able to see beyond the earthly existence. We gain all those things. If not, we say, as Kardec puts over here, but not foreseeing possessions that are being but not foreseeing possessions that are more precious than that are unearthly. They are like children. So when we are not understanding that we can gain things over here, that we can conquer value things over here that cannot be measured with a dollar sign, that cannot be quantified but just qualified. If do not have that understanding, then we will limit ourselves to seek to conquer only things that can be quantified, that can be valued with a dollar signs in front of it, because we don't have anything else. And if we don't conquer those things, then we suffer. Then we become prisoners, or our happiness is now sequestered by this idea, this point of view of things of value are things that can be quantified, things that can be represented with a dollar sign in front of it. We become like children who can see nothing beyond their toys. There is nothing that you do not, there is nothing that you do not obtain then. We are talking about last Thursday in our studies of the Spirit's book about needs and wants, the ability to differentiate needs and wants. We want a lot of things, but we know that it's not a need. We know that you don't really need it. And we don't going to go after those things that we want, but we don't need at all cost. When we have this understanding of the future life, of the life beyond this physical existence, and we understand there are things of value for us to gain over here that is perpetual, that we bring over to the other kingdom, to the other lives, and then you can have here as well. Of course, you can have here as well. Then our perspective changes. Then we give more priority to those things that we need to conquer over here. Patience, humbleness, affability, all those virtues becomes more important than the Lamborghinis, the houses with 16 bedrooms, and all those things that it's okay to want. It's just not okay to make this a need, that you pursue it at all cost. Because if you don't get it, then you cannot reach the happiness that is accessible to us here. But if we prioritized to gain the virtue that you can gain over here, and that's why you are here, even if you don't get it at once, you be in peace with your own conscience, because in the pursuit of them, but just by in the pursuit of them, it helps us to avoid getting ourselves into traps. So it's almost like a preventive medicine, so to say, for the soul. Seeking to obtain those virtues already helps you to avoid the vices. Not gonna live over here, Mother Teresa, Chico Xavier, but you stay in that path that'll keep you with peace, your own conscience. Because again, as the Ras tells us, we know all of you. We know all your tendencies. All you want for you is your best effort. Put your best effort to, conquer virtues, eliminate vices, then you're already in the good path. You're already doing okay. Okay, any comments there?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Number 6, right?
Yes. Number 6. If everybody thought in that manner, it could be argued that everything on earth would be endangered because no one would bother about anything. However, each person instinctively looks after their own well-being. Even if it were known it was only for a short time, people will still do their best. There is no one who, when finding a thorn in their hand, will not take it out so as not to suffer. Well, then, the desire for comfort forces people to improve all things, seeing that we are impelled by the instinct of progress, conservation, and that are elements of the laws of nature. Therefore, humanity labors not only through necessity, but also from enjoyment and a sense of duty. So, obeying the designs of providence that has placed humans on earth for that purpose. Only those who occupy themselves with the future can give relative importance to the present. These people are easily consoled in all their failings and misfortunes by thinking of the destiny that awaits. Accordingly, God does not condemn all earthly pleasures and possessions, but only condemns the abuse of these things in detriment to the soul. All those who take these words of Jesus for themselves, my kingdom is not of this world, are guarding themselves these abuses. Those who identify themselves with the future life are as rich person who loses a small sum without emotion. Those whose thoughts are concentrated on earthly things are as the poor man who loses all he has and so becomes desperate.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
So I think this item is extremely important. Because people can use the idea of spiritual presence of us prioritizing the valuable things that we need to conquer during our present existence here on earth. They kind of suggest that spiritualism is telling us to neglect our physical existence, to neglect the necessity of being here and being successful here and being well here, having the comfort that you are allowed to have here, enjoying what technology brings to us and everything else. And Kardec in this item 6 strongly tells us, no, that's not that's not what we are talking about. And that's not what Jesus came to tell us to do. Jesus came to redirect our point of view to something that is more precious than what we can conquer here on earth, but not at the expense of neglecting comfort and use the word enjoyment, which is very important, very important. We're not here to suffer, we're not here to eliminate everything that is enjoyable, that is nice. No, on the contrary. If God put those things available, accessible to us, it's for us to make good use of it, for us to enjoy it, right? And it's very important. No, there is a law, and the very first law that we see in the Spirit's book is the law of self-preservation. We want to preserve ourselves. To preserve ourselves, we have to guarantee that you have shelter, that you have food, that you have drinkable water. And as we have spoke again in on Thursday on the start of the Spirit's book, as civilization progresses, we go beyond just needing shelter, water, and food. There is an increment of things that becomes a kind of necessary to us, to have to protect our lives. And today with technology, I mean, having a cell phone becomes basically a necessity of life for those who live in these kinds of the community that we live over here. There's a lot of things today that in order for you to be able to do it, you're gonna have to have a cell phone in your hand and to be able to manage things in a more comfortable way. Is there a problem of having a cell phone and have the best cell phone that can get things for you faster, that can amplify your ability to to get things done? Of course not. And this is not here to condemn us to enjoy things that are allowed, that are here, that are accessible to us. None of things outside of the realm of enjoyment over here. You need to do those things as well. What the understanding of the future life, the understanding of our spiritual life opens to us is the realization that although all those things are here and enjoyable, you should make use of it. Make sure that you do not abuse it. Make sure that you do not become attached to those things because you cannot bring them back. But there are other values that you can get over here that will bring them back. And those will be the the credit, the credit card that you bring back to that world, that new world that you're gonna go eventually. And there, the credit is measured by the good that you have done, the suffering that you have alleviated, and that you cannot quantify, you can only qualify, you cannot equate with a dollar sign. So it's very important that Kardec puts over here to us that although Jesus brings to us the eternal life, the another kingdom, he's not telling us to neglect this kingdom. It's very important he says, accordingly, God does not condemn all earthly pleasures and possessions, but only condemns the abuse of these things in detriment of the soul. All those who take these words of Jesus for themselves, my kingdom is not of this world, are guarding against this abuse. Again, have this understand how that first was as a preventive medicine for the soul. Because now you have an understanding that is things more valuable, things that you should prioritize. And when you do that, even if you don't have those things that are enjoyable here, even if you're not able to get, I don't know, the best cell phone available and have to stick with you 90 years old, well, that's fine. It still works. You don't need to go be unhappy because of it. Be unhappy because you seeking to be a little bit more patient and continue being extremely impatient. That is more of a cause of unhappiness than not being able to change your car every couple of years. Your perspective changes, and therefore your ability to stay in a state of contentment here and in this life is much greater, because you are not enslaved by the things that you own, and you're not enslaved by the things that you don't have but you want to have. Your perspective here changes, your point of view changes, and you find life here a lot more pleasurable without I have all the things that for the other peoples are indispensable. Comments, questions? Right, number 7.
Okay. Number 7, Spiritism opens up and broadens out the thought process, offering new horizons in place of a short-sighted vision concentrated only on the present. It makes this fleeting moment passed on earth the unique and fragile access of our eternal future. Spiritism shows us that this life is nothing more than a link in the magnificently harmonious assembly that is God's work. It also shows us the solidarity that joins together all the different existences of one being, of all beings of the same world and all the beings of all the worlds. It offers the base and the reason for universal fraternity, whereas the teaching of the creation of the soul at the birth of the body makes each creature a stranger one to the other. This solidarity between parts of a whole explains what is inexplicable when only one of these parts is considered. This entirety would not have been possible to understand at the time of Christ, and for this reason, he waited until later to make this knowledge known.
Okay, I think you already spoke about this. What is interesting to notice here is the idea of the universality, right? As the example that Kardec used previously, when we look, I don't know, ants standing up, you see all the ants, they all equal, they all pretty much alike. And only amongst the ants themselves that you'll see difference between one and another. When we understand the equality, the law of equality, when we understand this creator that creates all of us, simple and ignorant, that does not provide privilege for none of us, but provides opportunities to all of us. And the differentiation that we see amongst us is those who make better use or not so good use of those opportunities is what creates a differentiation. But for those looking up high, we'll see all of us equal. So the higher spirits, they see all of us pretty much equal because they see us from a different standpoint in which we are like the ants. When we look at them, everybody equal. And everybody, the potential of elevating ourselves daily equally, repairing the mistakes of the past, standing up, taking care of ourselves better and continue progressing forward gives this idea that we are indeed all equal. And that is allows to have this solidarity. Because then we understand, like the ants, helping one another, each one taking care of their job. It will be responsible for something and doing that thing to the best of their abilities. Of course, they are more like robots doing things mechanically. We are different to make those choices, and we think about it when we make those choices to have this kind of solidarity, because now you understand this universal fraternity, like Kardec put it here, universal fraternity, we will better ourselves. And when we better ourselves, we create for us a much better place on earth that eventually, when Jesus once said, this world is not mine now, eventually he'll be able to say, this has become my world. When we accept that universal fraternity and practice solidarity. Comments, questions? All right, number 8.
Number 8, an earthly kingship. Who better than I to understand the truth of these words of our Lord? My kingdom is not of this world. When on earth I lost myself to pride, who then can understand the total lack of value of an earthly kingship better than I? What was I able to bring with me of my earthly regality? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Moreover, as if to make my lesson more terrible, it did not even accompany me to my tomb. A queen amongst men, I thought to enter heaven as a queen. What a disillusionment! What a humiliation when, instead of being received as a sovereign, I saw above me, a long way above me, those whom I had judged insignificant and had despised because they were not of noble blood. Oh, how I understand now the barrenness of honors and splendor so eagerly courted on earth. In order to win a place in this kingdom, it is necessary to show abnegation, humility, and benevolence, and charity in all its most celestial forms. They do not ask who you are or what position you occupied. Instead, they ask what good you have done, how many tears you dried. Oh, Jesus, you said that your kingdom was not of this world because it is necessary to suffer in order to reach heaven. And one cannot reach there by means of the steps to a throne. Only the most painful paths lead to it. Seek your path then through barriers and thorns and not amongst the flowers. Men and women hurry back and forth with the hope of acquiring earthly possessions as if they would be able to keep them forever. Here, however, illusions disappear, and it is soon perceived that they had only been chasing shadows. Then it becomes apparent that the only truly golden possessions, the only ones that can be made use of in their heavenly home, the only ones that can offer the possibility of entry, have been despised. Have pity on those who have not entered into heaven. Help them with your prayers, because prayer helps to bring all souls closer to the Most High. It is what links heaven and earth. Do not forget, a Queen of France, 1863.
So we see that Kardec brings a testimonium of a queen, an earthly queen of the past, to bring to us the testimonium as I have said before, this one, the way that Spiritism rectifies the teachings of Jesus, bringing testimonium of this different world, the kingdom that is not of this world, brings us the testimonium of this earthly queen at some time on earth, that upon leaving this world, they're going to another world, because the realization of the monarchy title over here that can be enjoyed, that can be used, that can bring happiness, that can bring tremendous amount of moral progress to one. It is a great opportunity to do so, but very often it's neglected because we have a very narrowed point of view, because we have a very narrowed way of seeing life as one simple existence in this earthly existence. And if you have that point of view only, then we are more likely to neglect to conquer the true values that we could conquer here, the true values that someone in the position of monarchy could gain. But in order to do that, or perhaps, if not absolutely necessary, extremely helpful if you extend your point of view beyond one simple existence. That one simple existence of the only earthly life existence, and prioritize only the earthly existence because that's all you believe, that's all you know, then there is nothing else for you. You could to waste the opportunity of conquer the values, the valuable things that are the credit in their life. And she witnessed that upon going back to the spiritual world, she found many of them was way below her in a much higher position because they have the credit, because they conquered the true valuable things that you can conquer in this earthly existence. And she neglected them all. And now she understands. So she suffers for the wonderful possibility of the disillusionment. She lives the idea of the illusion of one single existence, the illusion of acquiring all the possessions of earthly existence, and open to the truth that are valuable, things more valuable here for us to conquer. And again, going back to item 6, do not neglect your responsibilities of trying to, one, survive. I even take survive out now, but to have the possible best life experience over here, to do all comfort that you can gain for yourself with true, honest labor. Not forgetting there are brothers and sisters among us that could benefit of our assistance. And those are the valuable things that we gotta bring to us when you go back home or when you go back to the true world, the world of ideas, the world of light, the kingdom of Jesus. It's a short chapter. I'm not going to start chapter 3. So is there any comments, any questions?
I think for those that missed yesterday's presentation by Nina in the United States Spiritist Federation, it's really worth watch it, because she talks about the parables of Jesus and how we can apply them in our daily lives. And you have to remember, she's 18 years old, so it's incredible the maturity, spiritual maturity that she has, and the understanding and how she presents. And it was her first ever talk in English, and she has a very good English. So for those that haven't watched yesterday, I put the link there on the chat so you can watch it later. It's really worth. It's beautiful. So next week, next Sunday, we're going to go back to the book Action and Reaction, right? We are almost finishing it. Next week will be chapter 18, Collective Expiations, which is an interesting subject, right? I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss there. We have 3 more chapters to go on this book.
Oh, wow, so?
Yeah.
Something in the chat, yeah. All right, any more comments, questions? Well, thank you, everyone. And Carol, can you give us a final prayer?
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much, Elmo, for hosting for our class today. Thank you, John. Thank you for Sarita for reading for us today, and everyone who is here. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together again as brothers and sisters for our teachings of the Gospel according to Spiritism, Chapter 2, My Kingdom is Not of This World, the Point of View and an Earthly Kingship. The natural laws are expanded upon to give an expanded view of the path of progress. Jesus refers to the future life and the basic principles in the physical world to follow, to ensure happiness and to and to create moral goodness. Spiritism continues to expand on the truth and the certainty of the Christ consciousness. We are eternal spirits temporarily associated with the physical existence. We can separate our needs from our wants and to prioritize the enhancing of a wide array of virtues. This will bring peace within us, within our consciousness. We are progressing as we enjoy and balance our actions in the world. We are linked together by universal fraternity and solidarity. Excuse me. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all of our participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. And may we remind ourselves as we go forth now to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.